Michael from Tinternet, courtesy of Tinted. Right, today we're going to tell you how to tint these vents. Now, a lot of people call these quarters. They're wrong. Quarters would be the bonded window, mostly, which is in this sort of back pillar here, like on an estate car or a lot of five-door cars. This is, in the glazing industry, is what we call a vent. But if you didn't know that, let's call them quarters. What do I know? The problem with this Mk4 Golf, VW Golf that we're doing on this car is that normally, if we're lucky, this will all be this sort of surrounding area will all have a ceramic border, normally with a dot matrix pattern or something like that, and we can hide the edge of our film in that sort of gap on the inside. Unfortunately, on this car here, it is absolutely rock solid with rubber. Now, there are two different ways to do this, and I'm going to let you in on a little secret, a little tinter's secret, which not a single tinter wants you to know. The first one, being a very, very viable option, is to remove this window from the vehicle. Now, if we remove this glass from the vehicle, we can then separate it out of its rubber. We can tint the whole window, but we can make it 1 millimeter short all the way around. Because, of course, once we sort of put it back in the rubber probably covers about 3 to 5 millimeters. So then once we put it back in, you'll have no gaps of light or anything like that. Problem is, person who will do that is normally a very good mechanic or a very good sort of automotive glazer, where if you're just a window tinter, vehicle wrapper, sign maker, you know, whatever the sort of thing that you do is, and if you're not used to completely sort of breaking this door glass down to be able to remove it out of the vehicle, then you're going to have to skip to option B. I say option B, there is a C. A C would be, which would like I to call the process of elimination. So we could cut this on the outside, make a template, we could fit it, and because the rubber is a slightly different shape on the inside as it is on the outside, it's going to be wrong. We can then trim it on the inside where it's bigger. We can then trim off it, and then we can take it off, use that template for another go. Problem is, a lot of the time when you do that, it'll then be too short, and then if you keep going and going, eventually you will get the perfect template. But again, it is a process of elimination. What I'm about to tell you now is like what I said to you before. Not a lot of tinters will tell you this, especially if you're a customer. And what the majority of window tinters will have to do to make this is we will have to be able to tint this, is we will have to create our own gap. We will have to create our own gap where we can hide the film. And the only way to do that is to cut the rubber from the inside at a 45-degree angle to just create ourselves a little opening for somewhere to tuck the film. Again, if you ask a lot of tinters that, they're going to tell you they don't do it. They're all lying. They do it. And somebody else asked me for a window tinting instructional video on how to do pretty much the same window, but on the old shape Mercedes. Now, the only difference between that one and this one is on the old shape Mercedes vent, it actually has a semicircle of rubber that's sort of stuck on the inside of the glass. Now, if you were to just take the template on the outside of the glass, if you go to fit it on the inside, there'll be a huge semicircle block of rubber there. That person actually emailed me to say, do we do it in situ or do we take it out and we do everything else? If you do take it out, unfortunately, that block of rubber is glued to the glass. It's still a problem, even if you took it out. Unlike this one where it wouldn't be. So let's get this done. Unedited, completely unedited. So we're going to show you from very, very start, very, very finish. It's going to be a rubbish video to watch, but it's going to be very, very insightful if you listen to it. Here we go. That's how we do this one here. The first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to walk away from the camera so you can see what I'm doing. So you can't see what I'm doing, is I'm going to remove all of the debris from the outside of the glass so that when I put my tint on the outside of the glass to create a template, it won't be covered in dirt. Obviously, tint is very static, so if you skip this procedure first, then when you put the tint on the outside of the glass, it's going to pick up bits of dirt from the outside, and when you split the liner, it's going to jump from outside to inside, and you're going to get a very contaminated, possibly scratched bit of film. Now that's ready to go. I'm just going to cut this door glass also, and the only reason I'm going to cut this door glass now is because we use 30-inch rolls. So if I was to just use the roll for just this one, I would be wasting material. I might as well cut this one here in a 30-inch roll, and with the excess at the top, I will use to tint this window here. So let's find the material. Guys, where's the material? Over there. Obviously, the video I'm making at the minute is this window here, not this window there. So although I'm going to start to cut this one, I'm not going to finish it. I'm just going to start it so I can get my offcut. And actually, I've got a feeling that this may be a little bit of a waste of time showing you guys, because I'm not 100% sure that this offcut is big enough for that window. I'm just going to backtrack slightly. I might as well tell you what I'm doing here on this door glass here is I'm going to cut down this pillar, leaving this tint, the liner facing me, and the bottom edge being 1 inch over the bottom. I'm going to rip away, and I'm going to pull to me 1 centimeter, or as close as. Now on this car, it looks like I would cut down this pillar here, but actually when you wind this window down, it has another bare edge bit of glass there, so the pillar only exists from here to there. So let's do this bit next. Again, slightly sidetracking, this is not what I wanted to show you. I want to show you the window next to it, but I might as well tell you now, because if I don't do this part right this very second, I'm only going to be wasting film. I'm now going to lock that down, because I've got my 5mm that side and I've got my 5mm that side. So I'm finished sliding it. I can lock that down, open up the door, find the key. Guys, where's the key? Oh yeah. I'm going to lift up this top edge so when I wind it down it doesn't hit and buckle. And I'm going to wind down there till I get both edges of the window. And both edges of the window will be here. I'm just going to get my knife, rest on the edge, and because there's 2 edges here, I'm going to cut them in 2 different parts, and I'm going to let the 2 edges meet where the corner was. And this is my offcut, which I can now use on this. Just going to put that on the roof for now. I'm going to put this on the roof also. Right, forgetting about this one. Let's get back to this one. So, what I want to do is, I want to create this exact template, but I want to make it about 2mm bigger in either direction. Now the real question is this piece big enough to do this? Hopefully it will be. And yes it is. Right, I'm going to use my factory edge, the straight edge, and I'm going to use that for this pillar here, because this is the straightest edge. So that's 1 less edge to cut. Got a little bit of a crease in that center of that material there, so I'm going to have to heat that out later. Now, rather than button this up to the bar, like we would sometimes do, we are going to overlap it about 3mm. And you probably can't see this from where we are, but on this bar here, there is a bit of rubber where the rubber meets the metal, and that's about 3mm over. So it's a good little guide for me to put my film. Just going to put my film where the rubber meets the metal. And that's not always the case, but in this case, that will be a nice guide for us. I'm going to slightly lock it down, just so it doesn't move whilst I cut, but I haven't finished sliding just yet. I'm now going to take my top line, make a template of that. Pushing the material to the edge of the rubber, and here is a curve. I don't want to cut that in one motion because my film won't lie flat. So I'm going to rip away and I'm going to start again. I'm going to lift this up, bring it to the edge so there's no step. And I'm going to now follow to there and rip away where the curve, next part of the curve is. I'm going to lift up this material so I can push it back to the edge without having a step, what we like to call a bridge. And I'm going to cut it just there. And again, rip away so I don't have to cut too much of a curve. I'm going to carry on And again, I'm going to stop. Where the material didn't like to follow the curve, I'll just stop, rip away, and then try again. I've now got pretty much to the bottom. Now, I've already got extra on this right-hand side here to poke some more to the left, but I haven't got any at the top because I've only cut it parallel with the top. That means that I must give extra to the bottom. So we have more top and bottom, left and right. As you can see, I've already got enough on the right-hand side to be able to slide it slightly left. But if I was to cut this line here, I would not have enough to be able to tuck in, up or down. So I'm going to find the visible line of where the film wouldn't show, and then I'm going to cut on this rubber here, on the rubber gasket, and I can't cut on it because I will scratch, because I will put a score in. So I'm just going to scratch, just very, very roughly, just make a slight score mark so I can see where to cut. Now, if I don't take this to the prep board, and if I just leave it here so you guys can see what I'm doing, I will then grab my straight edge and cut through that scratch that we just made. Which is here. There we go. And where the curve meets the straight edge, I'm just going to have to try and freehand that in. Now, of course, this is not the perfect template because, for example, I don't know if you can see, but there's all this sort of stuff like that where edges didn't quite meet each other. So we're just going to tidy it up just a little bit. And again, sometimes, unfortunately, to do windows like this, it will be, like I said earlier, a process of elimination. Sometimes we will do what I'm about to show you and it won't quite work. So then we'll have to fix the problem and go again, and fix the problem and go again. And unfortunately, even the best tinter on the planet, which is me, will have to do this sort of windows a couple of times to get it perfect. Now, all I'm doing here is, now that we're finished, is I've just rounded off that tip. And I don't know if you can see there, I haven't quite done that yet. There's a tiny little, where the two straight edges meet, it's a point. Now, the material is only as strong as its weakest link, and its weakest link will be that point. So I'm just going to chop these points off in triangular motions till it sort of creates a curve, taking off as minimal as possible to create a slight curve. Now, that is our template of this, except it is about 3 mil wider and about 3 mil taller. I'm going to put this there for a second, and now I'm going to remove the door panel. Now, the door panel, if I move you over, looks like this. And again, this video is not to show you how to remove door panels, it's to show you how to tint this window. But you might as well see what I'm doing as I'm doing it. I'm going to stick the key in the ignition, wind this window down as much as it will let us to take off this door panel. Now, if you've seen a previous video about removing door panels and the concept of them, you will also know about us being able to roll panels and to be able to pop off the top, to be able to pull out that rubber strip so we don't have to remove the whole thing. Now, it is actually possible to roll this panel also, but the weather strip, this rubber strip inside here, isn't actually rubber, it's plastic, and it is pressed in so tightly to the metal that we can't actually get it off unless we have the whole panel off to get the room. So I'm going to have to take the whole panel off, but no worries, it's going to take seconds. I haven't done one of these cars in a very, very long time, but I'm pretty sure that we just take off this handle here, this cover, screw there, one at the bottom, off it comes. Let's have a look. Using a plastic card, something very soft that won't damage the leather. I'm just going to try and prise away this plastic cover. Like that. Very tight, this one. And it's off. That should uncover a couple of screws. And I think if I remember rightly, it's a big torque. No, it's not. It's a big crosshead. Right, let me go get the right screwdriver. Sorry about that. Let's try again. One screw. I like to put everything I take off on the footwell. So obviously when it's time to rebuild a door, I know where to find all them screws and clips. There's the second screw, but it won't quite pop out. And then there should just be one more at the bottom. Two more at the bottom. Obviously, if you know how to take off a door panel, just skip this section. And there's the other screw. Now let's take the panel off. Nice and easy. Off it comes. And like I say, the reason I didn't want to roll it originally is because this thing is so tight to the plastic, to the metal, sorry, that normally it won't let us take it out. Now here we are. It's this window that we're looking at right now. I'm just going to check that we're right zoomed in here to the window that we're after. Now at the minute, the film can't go any further than there, 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 or there. So we're going to have to, unfortunately, what everybody doesn't tell you, is we're going to have to cut a gap all the way around this here. And obviously, because we don't want the customer to know that we've had to cut their rubber, we're going to have to do a very, very neat job of it. So again, sorry for walking away from the camera. I've not got much blade left on this knife. Let me get a nice fresh blade so we can start trimming this rubber. And here we go. Now what we want to do is we probably don't want to take any more than about 2, maybe 3 mil maximum off all the way around. We need to make sure that once we've trimmed it, that there are no little lumpy, bumpy bits of rubber inside that we have missed, because that will alter us being able to fit the tint inside. And again, it needs to be nice and straight, nice and confident. So I'm going to start on this top corner. And actually, Gaz, would you be able to pick up this trestle and just do a close-up of this? Just for 1 second. So if you just get it nice and close so they can see. Now I'm going to put my knife in there. I'm going to have to, with my knife at a 45-degree angle, nice and straight, take off about 2 millimeters in, maybe 3. But the point is not only to cut it nice and straight, but to also make sure that the angle is definitely at 45 degrees, so we have a little opening that we can fit our film in. And there is where my knife ended. I can pull this bit off to where I started. Now again, I'm going to go in here, 45-degree angle, nice and neat, creating a nice little opening for our film and joining up to where the last cut was. About there. That was a nice one, that one was. And then as you can see here, if I got my knife, now we have a gap. We didn't have that gap 2 minutes ago. Now we have a gap. Ooh, and I'm stuck. We now need to join this edge to this edge, and this is the pillar, the main part that is on view. So being nice and careful. 45-degree angle, not much taken off, just nice and steady, nice and straight. 45 degrees, taking a couple of mil off. Again, this is not a video I thought I'd make because this is me proving that I'm sabotaging a customer's car, except there is a 99.9% chance that this customer will never ever notice, and the tint will be professionally installed with no sort of dinks or edges or anything like that. And now lastly, I'm just going to trim this bottom. This bottom doesn't really look like it needs to be trimmed because you can see here, this edge here is where the visible edge finished. So I should be able to just trim my edge of my film against the edge of this rubber and it should be fine. However, I've trimmed everything else. I might as well, apologies for the cut. That's a cut from earlier today. And I think there was just a small type of gap just here that I might want to open up a bit more. Perfect. And there is all of my gaps to be able to tuck the film in. Perfect. The next thing we're going to do, we've already cleaned it, and sorry, we've already cut it. We don't need to heat shrink it because it's a flat pane of glass. But all I'm going to do now is clean it up. Now, I don't like using razor blades on a window when not necessary. The reason is because there's a very small chance that you can scratch the glass as you do so. However, I have just cut rubber off the glass that was currently bonded. So I do need to make sure that I get rid of any residue of rubber that used to be touching the glass, which now isn't. I'm not going to blade the whole window. I'm just going to get in these gaps here that I've created, just so there's no little black strandy stains stuck to this glass. And that should probably be about right. Now I can do my normal cleaning procedure, which is spray with soapy water, spray the scouring pad of a non-scratch sponge, and scrub the bejesus out of it. Up and down, left to right. And that should be fine. Again, if you'd watched our cleaning video, then you will know my saying, which is, if it's still wet, it's still dirty. When we make it wet and we loosen all the contaminants onto the glass, the contaminants will then be floating in the water. If we don't get rid of all the water, we simply don't get rid of all the dirt. Gaz, have you got a conqueror, please? Thank you. Now, a conqueror tool is like an edge tool. So I'm just going to stick that edge of the conqueror in the edge that I've created to dry it up, but also as an added plus, it will slightly, because it's thicker than my knife, it will slightly open up this rubber a little bit more, just to loosen it up to be able to get our tint in. And I think that's ready to go. Now, I'm going to dry it up with an all-purpose paper towel. A lot of you guys spend extra money on lint-free ones, which is a very good idea, but it's really not necessary. It's all about how you lay it, which will give you the ultimate finish, not how expensive of a paper towel you use. I'm going to wipe it all around the edges there, getting all the contaminants off. And I'm going to use a different piece. Oh, there goes my mic. Use a different piece to wipe the flats. And here we go, wiping the flat. Now that's perfect. I'm going to give it a little blow. There's your lint-free. And I'm going to spray up the C-pillar, the panel behind this window. Make it nice and wet. I'm going to take my template and I'm going to turn it upside down, but not back to front. The liner is still facing me. Remember, this is the shape of what we're doing. That's the back. We don't want that. We want the front and then turn it around, upside down. And then we're going to put that on the wet panel behind us. I'm now going to take my bottle and I'm going to flush. And what I'm trying to do is I'm going to push the glass out towards this wall over here to create a gap. And then I'm going to get my solution in the little tiny little gap that we created, making it nice and lubricated, I should say. Get that nice soapy water all through that gap. And then I'm going to flush so that any contaminants that were on this window will simply dribble off. And there we go, ready to lay. I'm going to spray up my liner, get rid of all the static electricity and any dust that's landed on the film since we cut it. Remove the liner, which in this case did actually split. So I'm going to have to get the other part. There we go. Now, I'm going to grab what was the top, it currently looks like the bottom of the film, make it the right way around, and I'm going to pick up the bottom, just like so. I'm going to come to this glass, and I'm going to lay the top of the film in the right sort of place, but way too low. And then I'm going to slide up. There we go, perfect. I'm now going to get my back edge and slide it in the little gap that I've just created. And then I get to slide into the left gap that I created. Now, at the minute, that looks like an amazing job. I cannot see any gaps of light whatsoever, but I can't be sure of how it looks like on the outside. So I have no choice but to come over to here and see if I am actually covered in all directions. And I am. I have given it a bit too much extra at the bottom, but I can trim that against the rubber in a minute. So now that we don't have to worry about this rubber anymore because we are actually inside this rubber. I'm going to take a conqueror because it's not going to put much pressure on it. And I'm just going to very gently push out the excess water. Just for now, just so it holds in place. And I am going to also have to try and squeegee out the water behind these gaskets, but I'm not going to do it just yet, just in case it's still moving around a little bit. Now, my material here is resting on the bottom edge of the rubber where I made it a bit too big, but that's okay. I can use my card's thickness as a template to keep it away from this rubber by resting it against there. I can simply trim off this excess, so we are about 2 millimeters short of touching that rubber, which is not what we want to do, because if anything touches, it peels. The only way that the tint is going to lie flat is, of course, if it lies flat. Touches anything, it's going to peel back. Now, I'm just going to squeegee my edges underneath that rubber trim. Not very hard because it's still quite wet. Just going to get any excess bubbles away so it doesn't draw in any extra moisture. And then down there, and that's good. Now we can give ourselves our real squeegees. We'll count that as squeegee 1, and we'll just double check it's not moving. This is squeegee number 2. Perfect. And this is squeegee number 3. The last squeegee. The strong squeegee, making sure there is definitely no water left behind. And I can see from the inside of this that this window is near enough perfect, except I have got a crease there at the top corner, but that wasn't from anything that we'd done just then. That was done earlier when I picked up the film, but that's okay. I'm going to heat that up on the outside and it will just disappear. And I'm just carding the very, very last edge, the very last part of this film, so that we don't get moisture that dribbles back inside. Just making sure that we are definitely free from edges. And there you go. That is pretty much done. If I just loosely put this panel back on so I can shut this door for a second to show you what I've done. I can now shut this door and Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt, or your gran, whichever. That is done. That is how to tint a vent that is surrounded in rubber with no ceramic border to hide your edge of your film. I hope that helps. I hope everybody's happy with that. If it was a lot to remember, please watch the video back again, pause it and write down step by steps. And then when it comes to you doing it, do step by step by step. Now, just before I finish here, there is a horrible little crease there, which is really annoying me. Now, normally I would turn the camera off and just sort that out once it's off. But just in case you guys can see that, I'm going to show you how I would get that out. What I would do is I would get my card here to block that rubber edge so I can't burn it. And I will heat up the glass on the outside. Not too much because I'm in a corner, so I've got two rubber edges. So I'm going to heat a little bit there. Then I'm going to heat it a little bit there. And then a little bit over there again. And a little bit back there. And then lastly, on the inside. Why on the inside? Because I use the factory edge here as my straight edge, and my factory edge just so happens to be the edge that has the crease on. And I'm able to heat my factory edge because the grain is going in that direction. So I can give it a bit more heat there. Card it out. And it is gone. Just like that. That is how to do a vent window that is covered in rubber. My name is Michael Brand. Thank you for watching.